Looking broadly, the sound of Kingston seems to be defined by classic rock bands like the Tragically Hip and the Glorious Sons. But there have always been bands in town just under the surface, going against the grain and deviating from those sounds. Today we're talking to one of those bands. With their mixture of pop punk and indie influences blending with synths and experimental embellishments, Futura Free are part of a growing scene of alternative artists who found an audience and community in Kingston. In a year where live music has been put on hold, Futura Free stayed busy. The band dropped a track each week over quarantine. And now they're preparing for the release of their sophomore album, Reducer, an album that sees Futura Free venture into new, considerably darker and more experimental territory. Frontman Peter Luft and bassist Gabe Reeves join Riley and Jackson to tell us all about it on this edition of Kingston Live.
I've always felt kind of privileged to live in Kingston.
Per capita, there's so many venues that are supporting music.
Because you're not in a large hub, but you're not in a tiny town either.
I'd say it's my favorite city in Canada.
Well, welcome to the podcast, guys. Great to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Really excited to have you. So let's just jump right to it. The new album Reducer is coming out on the 4th of June. But before we get too into the details of Reducer, I want to talk about your last release, because you guys released a song or recorded a song every week during quarantine, which the longer this whole thing goes on is a crazy, crazy, crazy undertaking. Do you want to take us through that? Like, what was the inspiration behind doing such a huge task?
Yeah, for sure. That was wild. And that feels so long ago now with everything that's happened, which is crazy. And yet, we still are here, in quarantine, so to speak. But as with, I think every musician, just everything grinded to a halt. It was just super depressing, right? Like just thinking back to, a year ago or whenever things really started getting shut down. And we do everything. We record everything like in-house, I like to say. I think that sounds cool, which is we have the gear and the equipment to do it ourselves. And when I first started out recording things didn't sound very good, but now I think we know a few tricks to make it sound, serviceable. So we certainly had the means to do it and had a ton of content that was like half finished or, ideas just kicking around. And that's sort of where it came from. A big inspiration of that. And once again, from a marketing standpoint, it's kind of not a very good idea. It sort of saturates the market, and you can't really establish a brand, especially we had so many different genres of songs. But I just was like, well, what the heck? There's no rules right now. And no one else is really doing it in that sort of way. I certainly was inspired by a hip hop group called Brockhampton, who released 3 albums in the series of 4 or 5 months or something like that. And they too did it all in-house. And that was a huge inspiration just on sort of our DIY ethic. And churning out stuff, not because really anyone's asking for it, but just being well, we can, and we have the ideas. So there's no rules. So that was definitely sort of the idea behind it. Gabe, especially, not to speak for you, Gabe, but you got a lot of synth electronic stuff, and that definitely came into play with how we attacked this project. So yeah, that's kind of that.
When I first got into Brockhampton, I thought Brockhampton was one guy, and I have never been more wrong about anything in my life.
It's actually 2 guys. It's Brock and Hampton.
The first time I saw a band photo, I was like, this is a classroom full of human beings.
20 people. Yeah, totally. Man. I know what you mean.
I'm such a huge Brockhampton fanboy, man, pretty much since the beginning. So it's crazy that you mentioned, you're talking about the Saturation series, I assume.
Yes. Yeah.
Where they put out 1, 2, and 3 all in one year.
Yeah,
which was, it was a crazy time. Their shows are really wicked, by the way. I got to catch at least one right before quarantine, which was sweet. But
that sounds amazing.
That's super cool that you are a bit of a Brockhampton fan, though. Man, your influencers are kind of just all over the place, eh? Your name comes straight from a Frank Ocean song, which we narrowed down in our last interview on the radio show. But yeah, what's it like having so many different influences in the kind of band that Futura Free is?
It's really fun. It's really fun. That's my answer. No, it's good. I certainly think it keeps things interesting and it keeps things really fresh between like me and Gabe sort of like drawing from like that sort of pop sphere, because you can come across a lot of like, you know, guitar bands and like sort of, if you were to really like break it down, we are still sort of like largely a guitar band in a lot of ways. But like a lot of guitar bands are just like, oh, you know, I just want to stick with, you know, the rock and rollers or whatever. But I think it can definitely be an advantage to just draw on artists that maybe don't write a rock song like Frank Ocean or Brockhampton, who would do like a pop or an R&B or like a hip hop song or something. So, and it's just cool. Like Blonde by Frank Ocean, for example, definitely was a big inspiration on production and stuff, just with how, you know, the synths and are layered with the keyboards and all the vocal effects and stuff. Yeah, you can take a lot from all sorts of different genres, you know?
That definitely shifts your perspective on the band when you think about that. That you pull from some really cool modern influences like that. So that's awesome. How do you feel about being, you know, sort of put in this genre of alternative and indie where it's just so many different things at once at this point?
It's kind of nice. I mean, you know, you'll talk to people and they'll be like, oh, like I hate genres, like death to genres. And like, there's absolutely merit in that. But like, you kind of, I mean, everything has to be put in some box to a degree or another. Even just for like, when you're telling your parents about your band and like, what do you say to them? You're like, oh, like I'm in an indie band. Like, you know, it's sort of, it keeps things easy. And unfortunately, I wish this wasn't the case, but I've really had to start to get into how like marketing and how to like market like our band and stuff to like, you know, people who like don't really know us. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that is just, and I hate every minute of it, for the record. It's just so, but you know, you got to do it. And I got to, you know, talk up the band and stuff. But you certainly do have to, it is easier at the end of the day to just say like, oh, like we're an indie band. And then that, like you said, that can mean like a million different things. So then you can sort of drill down into that for those who are interested in stuff. So, and at the same, it's sort of easiest at this point to call us an indie band. All our records and songs can sort of sound a little bit different. And yeah.
I always feel a little bit hesitant calling any band any form of emo, because for a period of time there, emo was almost like I don't want people to know we're an emo band. But I think you guys are, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you guys really fit nicely into that like Midwestern emo revival that's kind of going on right now with bands like Modern Baseball and the Hotelier and the Front Bottoms. I know is a huge influence for you guys as well, right?
Yeah. Oh my God. Thank you so much.
I've never been so honored.
Yeah. Like that's so, I can't tell you how good it feels, because yeah, you're totally right. I can't go around to like random people and be like, hey, I'm in an emo band. And they're like, oh, like you mean like Fall Out Boy or Panic at the Disco or like stuff. And once again, in like the pop sphere, there is like that's not even supposed to be like a dig at them. There's merit in that own way. But when I say emo, you're exactly right. I mean like this sort of revival thing. It's so cool. And yeah, that's actually super flattering, because yeah, I draw a ton. Yeah. Like Front Bottoms, Modern Baseball. Those were like sort of, you know, my first real love with like sort of writing this type of music was like, you know, the early like Blink and Green Day. And then sort of the next thing was like the Front Bottoms, Modern Baseball, like American football, getting into all these sort of like a little like, yeah, like emo. And it was, I think at its core, the song still could be structured in that way. We're just adding a lot of, you know, gloss to it, a lot of synth and other stuff. But at its core, there's still just, you know, sort of like emo tunes. I super appreciate it. That's so fun to just have someone who sort of recognizes where those inspirations are coming from.
For sure. I always think it's weird. Like I was thinking about this the other day about how emo was kind of hitting its peak around like late 2000s, like 2007, 2008. And now it's making a return now. And both of those times are like, well, 2008 was the financial crisis. And now it's, you know, COVID's ruining the economy. Does emo dictate the stock market? Could we make that prediction right now?
and could we actually, more importantly, could we leverage that to our advantage somehow? Could we, is there money to be made by making emo music and
invest in Futura free coin?
Yeah. Oh no.
It's like insider trading or something.
Yeah.
Insider trading would be a great name for a Midwest emo band.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely. And speaking of marketing, you guys got a TikTok account, and I'm not letting that fly under the radar because it's got some golden content on it. Do you think that's important for artists, maybe even local artists these days, to be, leveraging TikTok as a way to promote your band, promote your music? Or is it maybe sort of genre specific for a band like you guys?
Gabe is embarrassed that I made the TikTok, I think. Right?
I didn't know about it for months. And frankly, I'd forgotten about it again until just now. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously there's a certain sort of sound that does well on TikTok, like it's more like pop and hip hop things that like people can dance to and make videos with. But yeah, I think there's merit in like any musical personality getting on there. I mean, that's where everyone is nowadays. It's the hot new thing, right? So it's just about like sort of, being where the people are.
Yeah, exactly what Gabe said there. It's cool to see all these there's a lot of creativity just because like it's so like TikTok, you can make anything like sort of. But my big beef with this is like you are like just you're editing like little videos and there can be some intricate editing and maybe I'm just too old for this, but I like editing on a phone is insane. Like why would you want to like splice clips together with like your like fingers? Like I just can't. That's like the biggest entry obstacle for like me like doing TikTok all the time because I like I've really been enjoying editing video and stuff like with a mouse and a keyboard. But so yeah, that's my big. Maybe I just need a bigger phone or something. I don't know, but yeah.
I mean, my secret weapon is just to export in TikTok's like dimensions. But if I end up doing editing, yeah. I mean, I'd love to see where Futura Freeze TikToks go from now. Once that weapon right there, but.
No stopping us.
But I think, yeah, it's cool because, I heard your music and I was a fan pretty much right away. But following you guys on social media and seeing this personality that you guys are throwing out there, it makes fans for sure. So I definitely agree with you.
Looking at some of your other social media on your Twitter account, you guys were interacting a lot with tons of other bands in the same scene. And I kind of want to circle that back to talking about the genre that you guys kind of fit in that being like an alternative band or an indie band or even an emo band. What's that like specifically in Kingston? Because sometimes when people think of Kingston as a music scene, I think surface level people will think of it as a straightforward rock town because of bands like The Hip and the Glorious Sons being some of the biggest exports from Kingston. Do you feel like there's a healthy alternative indie emo whatever scene here?
That's a really good point. And yeah, sometimes like I am like first out of the way, like I'm like eternally grateful for like sort of the amount of like history and heritage like Kingston has for like rock. Like I mean like I love the Tragically Hip, like absolutely, like but yeah, and like I see what you mean, how like there can be definitely. I try not to I've done my best to like outgrow sort of my gatekeeping phase where I sort of look down my nose and be like, oh, these guys don't know like actual underground music. Like I'm just trying to like, well, like if you're like just digging like, like the radio rock hits, like by all means, like you do you. But actually there has been a good amount of Kingston bands that are sort of like on a similar trajectory that we are, maybe not with emo music, but with other sort of like niche genres or sort of like what's sort of like hot and like sort of upcoming right now, not really stuff that's been on like, the radio for 30 years. So it's been cool to like talk with those guys who are just, and like just sort of have enough in common with them that, you could sort of be like grouped sort of within the same subculture, even though if it's maybe not the exact same genre, the ethos is sort of the same where you're sort of, you're hungry for like seeking out new music and like new influences rather than just, sticking to the same formula that, was done since like the 70s or whatever. But there is also merit for that. I will not to brush that off at all. But yeah, we have been able to talk with a lot of sort of bands our age that are sort of doing new stuff too, which is cool.
Do you want to give a couple of shout outs to any of your favorite picks from the indie scene in Kingston?
Yeah, absolutely. So one shout out to the guys in Monarch. Monarch is sort of like a pop punk alternative band. And actually, as you guys probably already know, pop punk and like sort of Midwest emo have always sort of been, like sister genres or whatever. And there's always been a ton of overlap. And, I'd say Futura Free, we definitely have pop punk roots just as much as we do with, Midwest emo and stuff like that. So Monarch, they're killing it. They've been around way longer than us, and they're just the sweetest guys you'll ever meet. And I think they've got some stuff in the works too. And yeah, similar thing where they're always like, they listen to like modern baseball and all like that stuff. So they're right on it. and another band, Willy Nilly, really good friends with those guys. Owen from Willy Nilly, he sort of is so cool because he's also into like a lot of like pop and hip hop, and like he knows like, you know, Brockhampton and all that stuff. So and he brings that to his songwriting, which is, I think, makes for some really great tunes. So yeah, those two bands certainly come to mind.
We love Willy Nilly over at Kingston Live for sure. Yeah, it's interesting to know that he takes those influences too, because yeah, I guess you can sort of hear it in his music when you put it down to like that. So that's awesome.
For sure.
So tell us about Reducer. What's going on with that? What was the quarantine writing process like for that one? I know you guys have quite a lot of experience with it. And where is its place in Futura Free? What are you trying to say with this new album? That's
a good question. I've actually tried to sort of related to that is with all the records that, because they're like self-produced, and like I spend a lot of late nights mixing and just switching something and then just switching it back the next day and all that stupid stuff. But I actually make recording notes, sort of like a journal or something, of how we did each record. So there's one for our last record, Unreal. I don't even know if it's anywhere. I just have it kicking around. But I was thinking about how I'm going to write these notes, because Reducer is just such a convoluted way of how we went about making this record. So the writing for it started basically 2 years ago in the summer of 2019, and it was going to be an electronic record actually. And like Gabe can attest to that. Like we're both like definitely like big into like ambient electronic music, and it's just insane. So I was like listening to this artist called Tycho a lot, who was just sort of like instrumental, like no vocals or anything. But I was going to do like, the instrumentals were going to be like really electronic, and we were all going to sort of like bring that together, and then I would just do vocals over it. And then probably about like halfway through, I like realized like, oh my God, like this isn't going to work. These vocals, there's a reason that you don't like really hear like Midwest emo style like vocals or like, alternative vocals over like an electronic beat, because like fundamentally they just don't really mesh. So I was like, oh my God. So we basically started from the ground up with more like sort of straightforward like drums and like bass and stuff. And that was great. Like that's sort of where like it really started coming together. So it was basically, we had to rehash it about a year in, and then the pandemic happened, and then the whole songs every week thing, the new song every week. And that was actually done to distract me, because I knew I would go insane if I just spent the entire time hitting my head against this like record that like was like sort of done, but like not really. And then finally, I think at the beginning of 2021, that's when we really started to motor on it again and like get it done. And Gabe and I were talking a lot about that. So yeah, that's sort of like from a technical standpoint, how it came together. It was like troubled in like the best kind of way that like the production could be troubled, because at this point we sort of definitely knew what we wanted to do, but it just took a little while to get there. Not that we, had anywhere to be, I guess, but yeah, I don't know. Gabe, do you have any thoughts on that? I just sort of rambled there.
Yeah, the record's good. I think everyone should listen to it.
That's true. Thank you. Yes, I guess I agree with that. I don't know. I'm on the fence. No,
somebody clip that and get that in an ad right
now. Good, man. Yeah. The other thing about the record is, so our previous like full length is called Unreal. That was released in 2019, and that's very much like a concept album about like love and life and all that good stuff. And this record is like by design the complete opposite. This is like a very harrowing experience, and that was intentional. I've always been a huge fan of bands that sort of stick with a theme for an album. We both love Radiohead, because Radiohead kind of does something very different for every record. Like you can listen to a Radiohead song and immediately pinpoint what album it's from based on like the tone and the production and stuff. So we sort of wanted to make like a really glitchy, evil sounding indie rock record, whereas our previous one was still an indie rock record and still, had the like the bare bones of, just like sort of catchy, pop punk emo songs. But like the last record was like super, chill, and this one's kind of a little depressing and a little violent and just a little darker, definitely. So that's the vibe.
Well, this seems like as good a time as any to throw to a track off the album. And I think we have the chance to premiere one of your tracks. It's coming out today, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Lay it on us. Tell us what the track is. Cue it up.
Absolutely. So this song is called Different Things. It's the track number 2 on the record. It was just a blast to make because once again, just like it sort of pushes all the buttons of what I really love in a song, which is just sort of like massive choruses and like massive drums and stuff. But I think it's a really cool way of how we sort of delved into more experimental elements, like just fusing them together. So you still have like the catchy backbone of like of an indie song, but like you just get all these, like, especially in the second half of it, it just delves into some like really glitchy electronic stuff. And it was just so fun to make. And there's a bunch of samples hidden in there everywhere. So yeah, it's a great time.
Futura free, Different Things right here on Kingston Live.
Message keeps running through my head when I'm neither here nor there, just sinking through the bed. But when the morning comes, I can never remember it. I wish I could. I wish I could. There's this life out there that I never really lived. Hold up in my room, I wouldn't dare to take the risk. And I tell myself one day I'll do those things I never did. But I know I won't. I know I won't. I know I won't. I know I won't. Leave alone to another.
Thank you for listening to Kingston Live. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. For more great Kingston music, check out the Kingston Live playlist on Spotify. You can also hear our sister show, Kingston Live, on air on Amherst Island Radio 92.1 FM and CFRC 101.9 FM.
You guys are both, like me, Kingston transplants. You guys weren't born and raised in Kingston. Do you want to talk about your journey individually of what brought you guys each here?
Yeah. Should I go first?
Yeah, Gabe, you go. Sorry, I realize you can't tell that I'm looking at you right now.
No. Just looking at the screen. Yeah, so I, like so many others, came down to Kingston for school. I went to Queens for 4 years. Got my bachelor's degree in... what was it again? Classical studies. So like Greek and Roman history and stuff like that. And yeah, I was like the whole time sort of looking for people to play music with, and I didn't find anyone. I wasn't looking that hard, in fairness, but I think it must have been in my 4th year when I just like put an ad out on Kijiji, like, hey, I play guitar and I sing and I do all this other stuff. Just looking for someone to meet up with. And I got about 3 replies, and Pete was the only one who wasn't a weirdo. So yeah, that was good.
Yeah, and then I guess that's a good transition to me there. So yeah, I was born and raised in Thunder Bay. I also went to university in Thunder Bay. So after that, I just graduated my undergrad, and I was definitely like I love Thunder Bay. My family and friends are there and everything. But I was like, I need to go somewhere else. Like I've spent my entire life like here right now, and I just need to go anywhere. And so my girlfriend, we just sort of made the decision. We'd both just graduated, and we had no real like job lined up, but we weren't really tied down to anything. Like the lease was up on her apartment, and we didn't like have like a job tying us down or anything. So like, let's just go to Kingston, because she had family in Kingston. So we just went there just kind of cause like it was a place to go. So we showed up and then got jobs there after we showed up, which was great. That worked out pretty nicely. So it's nice to have money. And and so as soon as I got there, because something, at least for me, is one of the harsh realities of, sort of like post school and you're in like your 20s, is that like a lot of like the infrastructure, like for like making new friends can sometimes be a little more difficult to like leverage, because when you're in school, like whatever, you got your pals, or like or work is like another one where you just like meet people. But like if you're just sort of like there, at least for me, like I'm like kind of I can be an awkward guy, so I was sort of like what do I do? So starting a band is the perfect way to make friends, because it sort of unites you with like people who share an interest with you, and like sort of towards a common purpose. And it's never really an awkward conversation, because you can always talk about like, what are you going to do in the band? So that was like a really great way. Yeah. Like, similar to Gabe, I like posted like Kijiji ads being like, hey, like let's jam or record music. I was able to like, I had my recording set up at the time. So a great way to meet people on Kijiji who are like good musicians, but who maybe like haven't done a lot of recording, is be like, oh, like come over and like, we'll have some beers and like, we'll record a track that you've been like thinking of or something like that. So that was a really great way to get like integrated with people and just to meet some folks. And yeah, that's sort of how the band sort of formed in its very early stages.
It's always interesting hearing people's first impressions of the Kingston music scene as people who like transplant to Kingston, and then they discover all these great venues and bands coming through and bands that are local playing. But I feel like you guys both had a slightly different experience to that, where you came into the Kingston music scene as the Kingston music scene. You were exploring making a band and recording music. What did that feel like to kind of discover the world of Kingston live music as that role?
It was good. It was intimidating, for sure. Like I had, in Thunder Bay, like I had like a pretty fun band back there, and like we like, so like I understood like the sort of the basic fundamentals of like booking stuff and like gigs and like all that. But every city's different, and like I didn't really know what to expect. And I knew Kingston's history as like a pretty tons of like heritage and like the venues and like the bands that have like been through there and stuff. So yeah, it was certainly daunting. I was like, holy cow, like. And like I had gone to like by the time the band was forming, I had gone to like quite a few shows, and it was just like, wow, the bands here like are so good. Like, so it was definitely, part of it was good because I knew that there was like a great infrastructure to as a new band get into, but it was also like, oh, like I hope they think we're good enough, and I hope they don't hate us or whatever, because yeah, like the bar felt like very high just because, you know, the great standard of music of live music in Kingston.
Something that we figure out on the radio show a lot, since we talk to artists on every single episode, I think we've done like 20 at this point, is that everybody says that Kingston's like this little tight-knit community where everyone's kind of helping each other out in the live scene. Do you agree with that? And are there some bands out there who, you know, you've come up with in the live scene in particular?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like, I mean, right now also I'm just like so burnt, especially like with just like the lockdown getting extended and I'm just like, now, like, what does it feel like to be at a show right now? But I'm trying to go back to my happy place right now and remember what it's like. And yeah, you're so right, where we already gave Willy Nilly a shout out. That sort of feels like coming up at the same time, because I was actually in Willy Nilly for a while, and just like being really like-minded and just like pals with the guys and that, and like definitely having like you know, like a win for them is a win for us, and like vice versa. And yeah, definitely I'm like trying to think of some like other bands, like the Astros are really incredible. Just like it feels good watching like this sort of like brand of like young like indie rock. Like Astros are like another band where, like, you know, there's like, you know, an old guard with, you know, all the dads in their bands and stuff, and they rock as well. But there's definitely, and like, you know, a lot of people could be grumpy and complain that, oh, like, you know, live music is dying out or whatever. But I actually think, you know, you can look at the Kingston music scene and see that that's not true, just because there's so many fantastic young bands coming up, and they're, you know, really wanting to just like rock the city, you know?
It's not as cutthroat either as some other cities, you know, when it comes to live music.
Absolutely. It certainly hasn't felt cutthroat being here. I haven't really experienced other cities, but yeah, I'm not looking forward to it. I don't know. If they're cutthroat, I'm not looking forward to it.
Where's Futura Free going from here?
To the top, baby.
Yeah, that's what I like to hear.
To the top. That's a very, very good question. I don't even know if I'll be able to go outside next week. So
there's so much uncertainty, man. I totally understand.
Of course, the record release is sort of the big thing. We've really enjoyed getting sort of into like a real visual medium. I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but Brockhampton just, you know, doing their whole in-house thing. Like they got a team of like videographers and stuff like that. Like they are like doing, you know, everything. And that was a big inspiration. I dabbled with a bit of video editing a while back, and I'm like getting back into it. So like the video for our song Weapon, which came out a few weeks ago, I edited that together, and that was a blast to do. And Different Things has a accompanying video for it too, and that's been really fun to work on as well. So it's been really fun just to roll out a bunch of content, especially after, you know, a few months of just sort of continually saying, oh, big things coming, and then, you know, just promising that things will be there. So it's so fun to finally be able to deliver on that. We did something crazy. We actually got physical copies of our CDs in the year 2021, which just I know seems crazy, but yeah, that'll be really fun too, just to get them out there and stuff. So, and who knows? Hopefully do gigs again someday. That'd be nice.
Definitely.
I do want to circle back. You mentioned Weapon, and you described it online as a song about looking back over your life and realizing how you have changed for the worse. And I feel like that's something relatable to everyone in one small way or a bigger way in some capacity. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course. So yeah, Weapon, like the big thing, and even it like sets the tone for the rest of the record, but like the big, like the chorus is like, privilege is like a weapon. It will keep me safe. I won the lottery. I was blessed by fate, which is just like, I've just lived this insanely lucky life by just cosmic coincidence that I happen to be born into like the best possible situation ever. And I've just given everything, like and I somehow have still been fumbling it the entire time, and just making a mess of things, and not through any, and like, I would never want to blame some sort of outside factor. So it's just a personal fault of just like literally playing life on easy mode and still somehow just like tripping over yourself and stuff. And, looking back over your 20s or whatever, and just not like being bitter, just mostly disappointed, like with yourself a little bit. So I'm sure, those are, some common feelings that maybe a lot of people share, but yeah, that's about that.
Oh, that's a great message, man. It's super, super cool. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people could really connect with that for sure.
Thanks, dude. Yeah, it's good because like the first thing we want to Gabe and I, we've talked a lot about this, is that we want to acknowledge how whereas it's always cathartic to like complain through music or whatever, but like to acknowledge how good we have it, like on when you actually take a step back, but you're still able to sort of explore those personal struggles through music and still acknowledge your privilege, I guess. So yeah.
Well, we're all super stoked for the new record. I assume if we do a 2021 retrospective episode, I'm probably going to pick another single off there.
Dude,
Mantis Creature
so
is my pick for 2020. So go listen to Mantis Creature if you haven't yet. That's such a wicked song. That's really the big Midwest emo vibes I got out of you guys for the first time. So I love that. And I'm so excited for Reducer, man. I think Futura Free is really one of those bands to watch out for in Kingston right now, for sure.
That means a lot. Thank you. Like that's it's exciting to hear. Yeah. Feels cool.
And we're going to be blasting all those tunes on Kingston Live on Air, the radio show, our sister show. So go check it out there when the album comes out.
Awesome.
This has been awesome, guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
This has been Kingston Live. We encourage you to rate us on your listening platform of choice and subscribe where possible. Kingston Live was produced in Kingston at Titan Sound. Hosted by Jackson Coulter and Riley Jabor. Writing and research by Peter Sanfilippo. Voiceovers by John Sanfilippo and Eilish Sullivan. Promotional assistance by Jackson Coulter and Reed Cunningham. Executive producer Rob Howard. We'd love to hear from you. Email us at podcast@kingstonlive.ca.
Yeah.
Killer.
Always happy to talk shop. So yeah, it's been great, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah,
it was awesome. How do we end this thing? How do we do this, John?
Yeah, I kept waiting for John to be like, and we're finished recording.
Yeah.